I spent $35,000 on a Hawaii vacation for my family, and my son told me, without blinking, "Go home. You're not coming." That was the day he closed a door on me. He didn't know I had the power to close one too, a much bigger one. Soon, he'd figure the cost of treating family like a hot pile of trash. Just before you continue to watch, Joe would like you to subscribe to this channel and like this video. It would encourage him to keep his streak of thrilling revenge stories for you to watch. All right, back to the story. "It's all set," I'd told my son Mark on the phone a month earlier. "4 seasons, Maui, 10 days, for your 29th, and, well, just because. I got your 2 best friends, Josh and Kyle, tickets too. A real celebration." My wife Sarah had always wanted to take him to Hawaii. Before she passed, she made me promise I'd keep the family together, which really meant don't let Mark forget you. For 10 years, I'd tried. This trip felt like the culmination of that promise. I sold $35,280 worth of an old mutual fund. The tax hit was brutal, but I pictured Mark's face, the surprise. I pictured us on the beach, maybe finally having a real conversation. So there I was, 5:30 a.m. at the Tom Bradley terminal, pulling my old gray rollerboard. Mark, Josh, and Kyle were already at the first-class check-in, laughing. They looked like a boy band. Mark, with his perfect teeth and $400 haircut, waved me over, but his smile was thin. "Dad, hey, you made it," he said, not looking up from his phone. "You bet. I wouldn't miss this for the world. This is it, huh? Maui." Josh and Kyle kind of shuffled their feet. "Hey, Mr. G." "Mark," I said, "the counter's open. Let's get these bags checked." Mark finally put his phone in his pocket. He took a breath, the kind a person takes before they give a presentation, not the kind they take to talk to their father. "Yeah, about that," he said. The laughter was gone. "Look, Dad, I appreciate you, setting this all up, the money. It's awesome. I just wanted us to—" He held up a hand. "But I made a change to the itinerary. It's really more of a friend trip, a networking thing. You wouldn't really get it." The air left my lungs. The Cinnabon smell was suddenly making me sick. What are you talking about, Mark? The tickets are booked. The hotel." "Right. So, the tickets." He smiled, a tight, professional smile. "I upgraded ours to first, with the budget. But when I rebooked, He shrugged. He didn't have to say it. "What?" My voice was a whisper. He sighed, impatient. "You forgot to buy me a ticket. Go home." I stood there. I physically could not move. Forgot. He said it like he forgot to take out the trash. He said, "Go home," like I was a dog that had followed him to the bus stop. Josh and Kyle were suddenly fascinated by the flight board. "Mark?" I said, and my voice cracked. "That's not funny. The booking reference is on my phone. I paid for it. I paid for all of it." "I know, Dad, and we're super grateful. Seriously," he said, patting me on the shoulder. It was the most condescending gesture I have ever felt. "But this is it's better this way. It's a young guy's trip. We're going to be out all night. You'd be miserable." "I'm not on the flight?" I said. It wasn't a question. "No," he said, picking up his sleek hard-shell carry-on. "You're not on the itinerary." And then he laughed. It wasn't a mean laugh. That's what killed me. It was an oblivious laugh, a little whoops laugh, as he and his friends were called forward. "Seriously, Dad, it's fine. We'll do something later. Go home, get some rest. Thanks again for the cash. You're the best."
"See you, Mr. G," Josh mumbled. They went through the security line. I watched them. Mark, already back on his phone, probably texting. Kyle, adjusting his designer backpack. They didn't look back. Not once. I stood in front of the check-in counter for, I don't know, a long time. 10 minutes? The agent, a very tired woman with kind eyes, finally said, "Sir, can I help you?" I just shook my head. I walked back to the parking garage, P5, level 3. I got into my 2015 Toyota Camry. I sat there. I didn't turn on the engine. I just sat. I thought I should call him. I should scream at him. I should call the credit card company and cancel the hotel. But I was frozen. Utterly, completely humiliated. I'm 58 years old. I'm a widower. I have one son. And I was just told to go home after handing him $35,000. I drove home. The sun was coming up. The 405 was already jamming. I got into my silent house. Sarah's picture on the mantle seemed to be looking at me with such pity. You let him. You always let him. I sat in my armchair. I was still wearing my vacation shirt, a blue linen thing I'd bought special. An hour later, my phone buzzed. A notification. It was Mark's Instagram. The first post. A picture of him, Josh, and Kyle clinking champagne glasses in big, first-class pod seats. The caption, "Wheels up, Maui bound, hard work pays off." I didn't break anything. I didn't scream. I just turned off my phone. And I sat there, in the quiet, for the rest of the day.
I went to work the next day, and the day after. I'm a consultant. It sounds vague, and I like it that way. When Mark asks what I do, I say, "I shuffle papers, son." He laughs. He thinks I'm a dinosaur in a dying business. He's in development, big, flashy, commercial properties. He works for a Shark Tank firm called Apex. All his life, he's chased image. I've chased substance. My paper shuffling is specific. I'm a land use and environmental charter specialist, specifically for the South Valley. I was part of the original team in the 90s that wrote the charters, the environmental trusts, the water rights, the zoning restrictions. I didn't just read the fine print, I wrote the fine print. After Sarah died, I poured myself into two things, Mark and my unpaid board position. I'm the chairman of the South Valley Environmental Trust. It's the most boring, toothless-sounding committee in the state. We meet on Tuesdays in a beige room at the county building. We eat stale donuts, and 99% of the time we rubber stamp permits. But 1% of the time, we don't. Mark was gone for 10 days. He sent one text. "Hey, hope you're good. Maui is epic. Sent you a postcard." A postcard. I almost gave up. I'm not lying. The week he was gone was one of the darkest of my life. I looked at my house, my life, and I thought, I failed. I failed Sarah. I raised a son who doesn't see me, who sees a walking, talking ATM. I almost called him, not to yell, but to apologize, to ask what I did wrong. That's the sickness of it. I actually picked up my phone. My fingers hovered over our text thread. The last one was for me 3 weeks ago. Landing time? He'd never replied. I started typing. "Mark, just checking in. Hope you're..." What?
Having fun? Safe? I deleted it. I typed, "Are you okay?" He stared at the words. A pathetic, needy question. I threw the phone onto the couch. "Stop it, Frank!" I said out loud to the empty room. "Stop begging to be seen." I felt the phantom weight of Sarah's disappointment. "He'll walk all over you, Frank," she used to say, lovingly, "if you lie down first." I was lying down. I was a doormat. I went to the kitchen and made a pot of coffee I didn't want, just to have an action to perform. I was a 58-year-old man with a good life, a paid-off house, and I was one text away from begging my son to love me. That was my rock bottom. It wasn't the airport. It was the quiet of my own living room, phone in hand. Then Tuesday came.
I went to my board meeting. Janet, our secretary, a wonderful, no-nonsense woman in her 60s, had the agenda. "Morning, Frank. Just the usual today," she said, handing me the packet. "Oh, except for item 4, the big tech deal, the Apex Aperture project. That's the last rubber stamp they need before they break ground. A formality." I froze. My coffee cup stalled halfway to my mouth. "The what project?" "Apex Aperture. Apex is the developer. They're building the new West Coast HQ for Aperture Tech. It's that huge plot on the old Lockheed land, a billion-dollar project. You okay, Frank? You look like you've seen a ghost." I looked at the agenda item. Apex Development. Mark's firm. This was his deal. He'd been bragging about it for 2 years. "It's the one, Dad, the one that makes me. It's going to put me on the map. It's a monster commission. Once Aperture closes, I'm made." I just nodded, not really understanding. "That's great, son." He didn't know I was on this board. Why would he? He'd never once asked me a specific question about my job. He just knew I was a paper shuffler. "A formality," Janet had said. "Janet," I said, my voice suddenly very, very steady, "could you pull the full impact report, not the summary? I want the original 800-page appendix and the 1998 charter, the original, from the vault." She blinked. "The 800-page one? Frank, we're just checking for water flow compliance." "Please, Janet, I think I remember a problem with the B-level aquifer." I didn't think I remembered. I knew. I wrote the damn thing. We'd written that clause, Article 4, Section 2B, after a brutal drought in '97. A developer, a different shark in a different suit, had tried to do the same thing, suck the valley dry to water a golf course, promising jobs while stealing our future. I'd stood at a podium then, just a young consultant, and I'd fought him. I'd argued that our water wasn't a commodity. It was a reserve. It was for the people, not for a corporation. We won. And I wrote that victory into the charter in perpetuity. I'd made it a canon. And now, my own son was standing in front of it.
I went home that night. I didn't sleep. I spread the original dusty bound charter from 1998 on my dining room table, and I read my own words. Article 4, Section 2B. All new commercial development in the South Valley Basin is explicitly forbidden from tapping, drawing, or otherwise accessing the B-level aquifer, designated as a protected reserve in perpetuity. It was a failsafe.
Then I opened the Apex proposal. It was flashy. It was full of glass buildings and rendered waterfalls. And there, on page 48, in their utility and sustainability plan, primary water draw, 1.5 million gallons daily from B-level aquifer. They hadn't just missed the charter. They had built their entire billion-dollar plan on a water source they were legally forbidden from touching. Why? Because no one reads the 800-page appendix. They read the 5-page summary the county provides. And the county had made a mistake. Their summary, written by an intern in 2010, had forgotten to mention Article 4. Mark's entire 2-year career-making "I'm finally somebody" deal was built on a typo. And I was the only person on earth who knew it. Mark came back from Hawaii. He was tan and emptier. The trip hadn't filled him up. He was already chasing the next thing. He came over for dinner. I made spaghetti. He sat at my kitchen counter, scrolling through his phone. "So, the closing is in 2 months," he said, not looking up. "The big one, Aperture. We're just waiting on the final stupid local permits. Some environmental trust. Bunch of dinosaurs. Can you believe they still meet in person?" I put a plate of spaghetti in front of him. "Sounds important?" "It is important, Dad," he snapped. "You don't get it. This is everything. After this, I'm a partner. Minimum. I'm finally out." "Out? Out of what?" "Out of this, out of, he gestured vaguely around my kitchen, my simple, paid-for kitchen. Out from just out. He didn't mention Hawaii. He didn't thank me. He didn't apologize. He ate his spaghetti in 5 minutes, took a call, and left. "Oh," he said, pausing at the door, "the closing dinner is that Tuesday, end of April. It's black tie. I might need to borrow your watch. The good one." "The one your mother gave me." "Yeah, that's the one," he said. "Talk soon." And he was gone.
I stood there for a moment. Then I went to the phone. I called Janet. "Janet," I said, "I'm calling an emergency review session of the Apex Aperture project. Full board. Public hearing. And I need you to send a certified letter to the CEO of Apex, the CEO of Aperture, and their legal teams. And I want you to put one line in it." "What's that, Frank?" "That as chairman, I'm flagging their proposal for potential gross non-compliance and material misrepresentation based on the 1998 charter." There was a long silence. "My God, Frank," she said. That's a cannon. That'll stop the deal cold." "Yes," I said, "I believe it will." I spent the next 2 months preparing. This wasn't a me thing anymore. This was a legal thing. My job as chairman was to protect the charter. I met with the board's pro bono lawyer, Ben, a sharp kid, 30 years old. He looked like Mark, but present. I laid out the binder, the charter, the Apex proposal, the county's flawed summary. Ben's eyes got wider and wider. "Mr. G, Frank, this isn't just a no vote," he said, his voice hushed. This is grounds for a lawsuit. Apex is certified in writing that they've complied with all local charters. They've lied. To their client, Aperture, to the county, to everyone. This isn't a mistake, Frank. This is fraud. "I just want to make sure I'm reading the charter correctly," I said. He just stared at me. "You're not just reading it, Frank. You're the whole game." Ben was right, and it scared me. For a second, I almost backed down. This was my son's career. Was I really going to do this? Was I that petty? I thought about just not holding the hearing, letting it slide, letting them build. They'd hit the aquifer, they'd pay a fine, but the building would be built. Mark would get his win. I'd still be the guy he left at the airport. I'd be the guy who paid $35,000 for the privilege. I'd be the doormat he wiped his feet on. I went home and looked at Sarah's picture. "He has to learn, Frank," I imagined her saying, "or he'll never be a man." The 2 months that followed were the strangest of my life. I was living a completely parallel existence. By day, at my consulting job, I was finalizing reports on, printer ink and zoning variances for a strip mall. I was answering emails. I was Frank, the paper shuffler. By night, I was a legal scholar. I was cross-referencing my 1998 charter with 2 decades of county amendments. I was building my case. My dining room table disappeared under binders and legal pads. I'd be up at 2 a.m. highlighting a subsection on water table runoff, and my cat, a 10-year-old tabby named George, would knock over my coffee, all over the 1982 fire code update. I sat there watching the coffee soak into the page, and I just laughed. Even the cat is trying to stop me, I thought. I dried the pages, bought a new binder, and kept going. The week before the hearing, my kitchen sink backed up, water everywhere. I had to call a plumber, an emergency weekend call. As I was writing the $400 check, the irony was not lost on me. Here I was, drowning in my own kitchen while preparing to blow up a $1 billion deal over water. Life is weird. During that time, Mark called once. It was a Tuesday. My dining room table was buried. "Hey, Dad, quick question. Do you know a good place to get a suit tailored? My boss is flying the whole team to Vegas for a pre-closing party." I looked at the stack of evidence. "I don't know, Mark," I said. "Okay, weird. Hey, remember that black tie thing is on the 28th? Still need that watch." "I'll see if I can find it," I said. I hung up. I'm not usually the type to be cold, but I was then. That call solidified it. He wasn't just oblivious, he was uncurious. He had no curiosity about me, my life, or anyone outside his own ambition. The dinosaur was about to show his teeth. We scheduled the public hearing for April 28th, the same day as Mark's closing. I know this sounds petty. I know it does. But as I sat there, planning the meeting, I thought about Mark's laugh in the airport. "You're not on the itinerary." "Well," I thought, "you're not on this one either, son." The day arrived. It was a Tuesday. I wore my best suit, not a flashy one, just a good gray suit. The meeting room was packed. It's usually just me, the board, and Janet. That day, it was full of suits. Lawyers from Apex, lawyers from Aperture. Mark was there, at the front, with his boss, a guy who looked like a clenched fist in a $5,000 suit. Mark saw me at the head of the table, by the gavel. He looked confused. He waved, a little tight, "What are you doing here?" wave. I just nodded. "We will call to order the public review of the Apex Aperture development, File 447B, I said. Mark's boss leaned over to him. I could read his lips. "That's your dad?" Mark's face went white. I continued. "The board has called this hearing to review a gross non-compliance issue discovered in the Apex proposal. It won't take long." I opened my binder. My very boring beige binder. The proposal from Apex Development on page 48 relies on 1.5 million gallons of daily water draw from the B-level aquifer. I looked up. The lawyers were all shuffling. Mark's boss was smiling, but it was a shark's smile. He was ready for a fight. "Unfortunately," I said, "this board is bound by the 1998 South Valley Trust Charter, Article 4, Section 2B, which, for those who haven't done the reading, explicitly designates the B-level aquifer as a protected reserve unavailable for any new commercial development in perpetuity." Silence. You could have heard a gnat cough. Mark's boss stopped smiling. He was flipping through his own much thinner, much flashier binder. What charter?" he stammered. I slid a copy of the 800-page original down the table. "This one," I said, "the one I co-authored in 1998, the one your firm, Mr. Harrison, certified in writing that you had read and fully complied with in your application." Mark's boss went from tan to a color I'd call oatmeal. Mark was just staring at me. His mouth was open. He was watching his career, his commission, his "I'm finally somebody" moment disintegrate.
Then the real authority in the room spoke. It wasn't me. It was a sharp-looking woman in the back. "Mr. G," she said, standing up. "Caroline Webb, General Counsel for Aperture Tech." Oh, shit. The buyer. "Miss Webb," I said, "are you stating, on the record, that this entire proposal, which Apex Development brought to us, is built on a water source that is illegal? That their proposal is fundamentally non-compliant?" I looked at her. I looked at Mark's boss. Then I looked at Mark. He was shaking his head, a tiny "no, no, no" motion. "I'm stating," I said, "that the proposal, as written, is based on a water source they legally cannot touch. The proposal is, therefore, void." Caroline Webb didn't pause. She nodded, once. "Thank you for your time, Mr. G. You've saved my client a billion-dollar mistake." She turned to Mark's boss. "This meeting is over. Our offer is pulled. And you, Mr. Harrison, will be hearing from our legal team. We consider this material misrepresentation to be fraudulent." She snapped her briefcase shut. "We're done here." And with that, the lawyers from Aperture stood and walked out. The room, it was chaos. Harrison, Mark's boss, turned to Mark, and he screamed in front of everyone. This was your diligence. You were supposed to handle the local. You told me it was a rubber stamp. You cost us everything." Mark was shrinking. He was 29, but in that moment, he looked like he was 9. I didn't know," he whispered. "You didn't know?" Harrison roared. "That's your father." Mark just looked at me. His eyes were... I'd never seen that look. It wasn't anger. It was desolation. "Dad," he said, You did this?" I just looked at him. I didn't smile. I didn't yell. I just held his gaze. He stormed out of the room. I turned back to my board. The motion to deny the Apex proposal on the grounds of gross non-compliance is before us. Do I have a second? Janet's hand shot up. Seconded. "All in favor," I said. Every hand went up. "Motion carries," I said. I banged the little wooden gavel. "This meeting is adjourned."
I went home. I made myself a cup of tea. I sat in my armchair and waited. It took 3 hours. The door flew open. I didn't even hear him park. He stormed in, his face blotchy and red, his $1,000 suit jacket crumpled. "Why?" he screamed. His voice was raw. "Why did you do it? You ruined me. You know what that deal was? You know 2 years of my life gone. Why?" He was pacing, energized by his own rage, knocking a stack of mail off the entry table. You old man, you couldn't stand it, could you? You couldn't stand to see me win, to see me be bigger than you? You paper-shuffling dinosaur. You had to ruin it." I sipped my tea. I put the cup down on the saucer. "You left me at an airport, Mark," I said. His rage just stopped, midair. He blinked. "What?" "LAX, 5:30 a.m., you, Josh, and Kyle. You took $35,000 of my money, you laughed, and you told me to go home. So I did." He stared at me, uncomprehending. This is about Hawaii? You torpedoed my career over a vacation?" "No," I said, and I finally stood up. I was tired of being the small one. I didn't torpedo anything. You did. What are you talking about? You're the one. The chairman. He spat the word. Your diligence was sloppy, I said, my voice as cold and hard as I'd ever heard it. You've been sloppy for 10 years. You assumed the rules didn't apply to you. You assumed the details were for little people. You didn't read the binder. I stepped closer. Just like at the airport, you didn't check the itinerary. You just assumed I wasn't important enough to be on it. You assumed I was just the money. He had no words. His mouth opened and closed. You left me at an airport, Mark, I said, my voice quiet again. I left you at the bargaining table. The consequences for sloppy work are severe. I walked to the door. I opened it. Now you go home. He looked broken. The arrogance, the flash, the "I'm finally somebody," it was all gone. He was just a terrified kid in a suit. He walked out. He didn't slam the door.
The silence that followed was louder than the screaming. I spent the first week waiting for another explosion, a lawsuit, anything. But there was nothing. The fallout I'd read about in the trades was swift. Harrison's firm was, for all intents and purposes, radioactive. Aperture's lawsuit was surgical. They weren't just asking for their deposit back, they were suing for reputational damages and lost opportunity. Harrison, in turn, had to find a scapegoat to offer up. That's what they do. They don't take the hit themselves. They find someone to feed to the sharks. And Mark was the one. I saw it on LinkedIn. His profile, once Senior Development Associate at Apex, suddenly read, Open to Work. I heard, through Janet, who heard it from a friend in county permitting, that his leased BMW was repossessed from the street outside his glass box apartment. Josh and Kyle, his so-called friends, were suddenly nowhere to be found. Their own Instagrams, once full of his reflected glory, went silent. 2 months after the hearing, I was driving through his neighborhood. I told myself I was just checking on a zoning issue. And I saw the for rent sign on his building. He was gone. I didn't know where. This was the hard part. This was the part where the victory felt hollow. Was it worth it? I'd ask myself that late at night. I'd protected the charter. I'd done my job. I'd taught him a lesson. But was this the lesson? Ruin? I had to fight every single day, the instinct to rescue him. My fatherly provider instinct was screaming at me. Find him. Send him money. He's your son. I'd have to sit on my hands, literally, to stop myself from calling him. I'd have to remind myself, he's 29. He's not a child. A child's mistake gets a timeout. An adult's mistake gets a consequence. The lesson wasn't the fall, Frank. The lesson is the getting up. You can't get up for him. That was the hardest work of my life. Not writing the charter, not holding the hearing. It was the not calling. It was the not saving him. It was letting the consequence land. I'm not a cruel man. I'm not. I'm his father. But Sarah was right. He had to become a man. And men don't get made at first-class check-in counters. They get made in the dirt. They get made in the studio apartments above 7-Elevens. I had to let him be in the dirt. The aftermath for me was systematic. Mark was fired, publicly. He lost his job, his 6-figure salary. He couldn't make the payments on his leased BMW. He couldn't make the rent on his glass box apartment. Within 6 months, he was working a grunt-level job, an assistant to an assistant at a tiny, no-name development firm in Pomona. He was living in a studio apartment above a 7-Eleven. I knew this because, despite my resolve, I'd driven by. I'd seen him walk out in his old rumpled suit, holding a coffee. He looked thin. I didn't call him. I didn't text. I just waited. My life, on the other hand, got better. The board's action was seen as heroic. Janet and Ben, the lawyer, took me to lunch. "You saved this valley, Frank," Ben said. "That water, that was everything. You're a damn hero." I'd never been called a hero for shuffling paper. Aperture Tech, the client he'd lost, actually reached out to me. Carolyn Webb, the sharp lawyer. She sent me a gift basket and a note. "Mr. G, few people have the integrity to do what you did. If you are ever looking for a new challenge, please call." I hadn't been looking, but I kept the card. Then, one Saturday, 8 months after the meeting, my doorbell rang. It was Mark. I almost didn't recognize him. He was in a cheap suit. It was clean, but it was polyester. His hair was longer. He looked tired. He also looked real. He was holding a stack of papers. "Dad?" he said. His voice was quiet. I'm working on a new deal. It's a warehouse in Pomona, a small one." "Okay," I said. I read the water charter, the 800-page one. I read all of it twice." He took a shaky breath. "But I don't understand Section 4, the part about the 1973 county easement. It seems to conflict with the zoning map." I looked at him. Just looked. The swagger was gone. The entitlement was gone. He was just a guy trying to do his job. "Section 4 is tricky," I said finally. "It does conflict. You have to cross-reference the 1973 easement with the 1982 fire code update. They buried the water access rights in there. It's a common mistake." His eyes, they lit up. Not with dollar signs, but with understanding. "That's," he said, "that's it. That's what I was missing." "Get a coffee, Mark," I said, stepping back from the door. He hesitated. "Dad, I'm... Just get the coffee. We've got work to do."
We spent the next year working. He didn't move back in. I didn't bail him out. But every few weeks, he'd come over. With binders, with maps, with questions. "What's the setback requirement on a mixed-use commercial? How do I find the original surveyor's notes from 1950? I found a problem in the soil report." He'd learned. He'd learned to read. He'd learned to look. His little Pomona warehouse deal, it closed. It wasn't a $2 million commission. It was $20,000. But he'd earned it. He'd done the diligence. He used that money to get a slightly better apartment. He kept working. 2 nights ago, he came over. No binders. "Hey, Dad," he said. "Mark, what's up?" He handed me an envelope. I opened it. It was a check for $35,280. "Mark," I said, it's the first one, the first of many. I'm paying you back for Hawaii and for college and for everything." "You don't have to do this," I said. "I know. I want to. And I brought you something." He reached into his pocket. It was a small velvet box. He opened it.
Inside was my watch, the one my wife had given me, the one he'd borrowed for his black tie dinner and lost when he got fired. I tracked it down, he said, his voice thick. The pawn shop. It took me 6 months to get the money. But here. He handed it to me. And he pulled out a small white envelope from his coat. I opened it.
It was 2 tickets, Coach Plus, to Maui. It's not the Four Seasons, he said, trying to smile. It's a very nice, clean Marriott. But I read the reviews, and I've got the time off if you want to go.
I looked at the tickets. I looked at the check. I looked at my watch, back on my wrist. It felt heavier than I remembered. I picked up the check. This, I said, is yours. You earned this. I tried to hand it back. No, he said, and his voice was firm. Not arrogant, just firm. It's yours. It's the first installment. I did the math. With interest, I'll have you paid back in about 7 years. He smiled a small, tired smile. So, don't go anywhere. I put the check on the table. This, I said, holding up the watch, I'll keep. I took the tickets. A very nice, clean Marriott, I said, and I felt a smile, a real one, pull at my mouth. I think your mother would have loved that. Yeah, he said, his eyes a little shiny. I think so too. I'll pack my own bag this time, I said. But Mark, just one thing. What's that, Dad? I get the window seat. He laughed, a real laugh, not the whoops laugh from the airport, a real one. Yeah? Okay, Dad. You get the window seat. He'd lost $35,000 and $1 billion deal. He'd been humiliated and fired. He'd lost 2 years of his life, only to start over from nothing. But as I stood there, with my watch in my hand and 2 tickets to Maui on the table, I finally, after 10 long years, felt like I had my son back. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like this video, comment, and smash the subscribe button. Also, check out other videos on the channel. Joe's got more interesting stories for you.